Happy Halloween, Bills Mafia. Trade rumors, they're getting spooky, and they are heating up as we are just 4 days out from the 2025 NFL trade deadline, and more players are being linked to your Buffalo Bills via some NFL insiders, some those over at ESPN, and others covering the team around the league. Before we dive into all these players that are linked to your Buffalo Bills and some trade rumors, manifest good vibes around this trade deadline. If you want Brandon Beane to make a splash, because there are positions of need on this Bills roster, go down below and manifest it. Like today's video, smash that thumbs up icon, and try to beat our likes record for the month on the last day here. 420 likes. Can we have 421 on today's show? That'd be awesome, and maybe Brandon Beane might just pick up the phone and make a trade. Alrighty, first player that the Bills have been linked to here, Budda Baker, the 29-year-old playmaking safety over with the Arizona Cardinals. This came in from Ben Solak over at ESPN, who said the following: who could be targeted? Cardinals safety Budda Baker. The play of Rapp and Cole Bishop has left the Bills defense highly vulnerable against third-level runs and intermediate passes. Coach Sean McDermott is always reluctant to introduce new players to his defense, but a swing for the fences is necessary. As the Cardinals season falls apart, the 29-year-old Baker might finally get the trade he requested in 2023, though he signed an extension that makes it trickier. Yeah, so we'll get to that in just a little bit, but Budda Baker is a little expensive here to go out there and make a trade for, but there's no secret that he is a playmaker. Look, the Bills did, though, just get their best safety play of 2025. Solak was talking about Taylor Rapp. Well, Taylor Rapp is on injured reserve now, and starting at the safety spot opposite Cole Bishop is Jordan Poyer. Now, I think we got to talk about Budda Baker a little bit at least, though, because how much can we rely upon a 34-year-old Jordan Poyer to be the last line of defense in this Bills defense? Look, man, Budda Baker is a playmaker, not necessarily a guy who's going to be a ball hawk defensively. You got to go back all the way to 2022 when he had his last interception, but 5 PBUs last season so far. He's been playing all right, mostly a box safety here, and I think that can be pretty advantageous for a Bills team and a Bills coaching staff that likes to run their safeties close to the line of scrimmage, move them all around the football field. But if it's going to be coverage coming from Budda Baker here, I'm not so sure that it is going to be what Bills fans are looking for so far this season. And I know PFF is not the Bible, but 40.6 coverage grade, I mean, it can't be that good, right? They're not that far off with this guy being a terrible coverage defender at this point this season. And he's also probably got one of his highest missed tackle rates of his career so far, with 9.4% of his opportunities being missed there. Already has TFL. He can get to the pass to the quarterback if you send him on a blitz. He's still super fast out there, but man, at the end of the day, I'm not so sure if the Bills are looking for a true coverage safety, a guy who can be that last line of defense at the third level, then it's not going to be Budda Baker. But you can't deny him as a run stopper, a tackler, a player who plays around that box and around that line of scrimmage. So I would be willing to take a chance. However, how much maneuvering does Buffalo really need to do in order to go out there and get a guy like Budda Baker? They may have to move some money around to trade for him. They're less than $2 million below the salary cap at this point. So with Budda Baker carrying a high base salary and roster bonus and all that good stuff after signing this extension, it might not be it may not make the most sense for Brandon Beane to move money around just to bring in a guy who doesn't necessarily cover all too well. You be the GM for me, though, down in the comment section. Should the Bills trade for Budda Baker? Simple. T for trade, P for pass. Let me know what you guys think down below if the Mafia is interested in bringing Budda to the Buffalo area. What about Logan Wilson of the Cincinnati Bengals, a linebacker who is much like Budda Baker, requested a trade. His, though, was a lot more recently here as Logan Wilson requested a trade at the start of this season and continues to be on that mantra. Another player now who has requested a trade away from Cincinnati. This Cincinnati defense is not very good, and I'm sure Logan Wilson is looking for a change of scenery here because he's been a good player in his NFL career so far. And I think with the Bills having a couple more injuries at the linebacker room, this could make sense for Buffalo to go make a move on. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said the following on Wilson to Buffalo, and he said, one position to potentially watch is linebacker. Cincinnati's Logan Wilson would make a lot of sense as he requested a trade from the Bengals. Last year, the Bills added Amari Cooper to mixed results. A similar splash move of receiver feels on the table, but not a slam dunk. So could they go after somebody at the second level of the defense here? Like I alluded to, the linebacker room is consistently facing injury so far this season. Not only has Matt Milano gone on the shelf for multiple weeks twice now, but Terrell Bernard has had this lingering ankle injury that made him available in case of emergency in Week 8, but he didn't see a snap. Now, he is practicing in full along with Milano now ahead of Week 9, but you still got to take that with a grain of salt. Like, these guys historically just kind of made of glass, for lack of a better word, in this Bills linebacker room. And you got Shaq Thompson out there now dealing with a hamstring injury as well. He did not practice on Thursday leading up to this Kansas City game. So could they go after a linebacker here in Logan Wilson? Well, I mean, if we're looking at coverage stats here, those aren't too good. And we're looking at missed tackle rate, 10%, not too good as well. I mean, it's just been a total disaster in Cincinnati. They just allowed 39 points to the New York Jets. So not many units on that defense over there can be very good. And maybe with a change of scenery, Logan Wilson can get back to the playing ways that he had in the season prior and the year before that, where he was much better and higher graded out by the folks over at PFF. But with Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard looking healthy now, I'm not so sure that linebacker is the number one priority or the focus for Brandon Beane in this front office heading into the trade deadline. So I would hold my breath on a Logan Wilson trade, but maybe could get him for a little bit of a discount here, as I believe he's in the final year of his contract, and it would be pretty cheap considering he's already requested a trade out of Cincinnati. Next, coming up, we've got some insiders talking about who Buffalo could actually trade away at the deadline potentially, and then we get some more players linked to the Bills in some trade rumors. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor on today's show, and as this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Keep the hard-hitting football action even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. I've been having a ton of fun playing Prize Picks this football season because it's so easy to play. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats. And take it from me, I've been a customer longer than even been a sponsor here at Chat Sports because they offer the best features like stacks. Yes, the only daily fantasy sports app where you can take multiple stat projections from the same player and put it in the same lineup. It's also becoming a social event as well. You can follow other creators. You can follow celebrities. You can follow your friends on the Prize Picks app and copy their picks into your own lineup. My lineup that you can copy in the feed tab for this week looks as follows. I had Derrick Henry more than 89.5 rushing yards against the Miami Dolphins on Thursday night. I had Josh Allen more than 34.5 rushing yards against Kansas City this Sunday, and then Khalil Shakir more than 50.5 receiving yards for him. You can tail my picks or fade them. Just do it at Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups instantly after you play your first $5. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Well, who could the Bills be trading away? What about wide receiver Curtis Samuel? Now, let's not hold our breath here on a Curtis Samuel trade. He makes way too much money. Another blunder by Brandon Beane giving money away to a wide receiver. But Atlanta Getzberg saying this about Curtis Samuel potentially being on the move. She says that who could be on the move for receiver Curtis Samuel? It just hasn't come together for him as he's been injured in both of his seasons in Buffalo and was a healthy scratch for 3 games to start the season. In his 17 games with Buffalo, Samuel has 34 receptions, only 3 this year, 288 yards and 2 touchdowns, in addition to 5 carries for 14 yards. The Bills could use help at receiver, but Samuel hasn't shown that he could be part of the solution. Okay, so yes, I'm sure the Bills would love to trade away Curtis Samuel. They save a ton of money by doing so. The problem is, who's trading for Curtis Samuel? We just heard what Elena had to say about his time in Buffalo. Injury-riddled and unproductive. So when he's got a $6.9 million base salary, and granted that would be prorated here as we're halfway through the season, still, who is trading for Curtis Samuel for over $3 million on their books? Makes absolutely no sense. He's not effective, and you'd be lucky to get a 7th-round pick for somebody just taking the salary of Curtis Samuel. Like you may have to give away Curtis Samuel and a 6th to get back a 7th, and that is really feeling optimistic at this point. Now, a couple more players linked to the Bills here. Some trade rumors that I've been seeing around the internet leading up to the deadline. Wanted to make sure that we covered basically every player that has been linked to your Buffalo Bills so far. Brian Thomas Jr., his name was popping up. Diana Rossini threw it out there that the Jags were taking calls on Brian Thomas Jr., but Liam Cohen, their head coach, just came out and said that they are not going to be trading Brian Thomas Jr. That has not been a discussion in the building whatsoever. There were also rumblings that he could only be going for like a 2nd-round pick or something. If that was the case, I mean, Buffalo should have been all over a trade call to Jacksonville there. Brian Thomas Jr. having a rough season, but I think the Jags are going to hold out on the production that he had in 2024. What about Calvin Ridley, though, at the receiver spot? We've covered Chris Olave and Jacoby Myers and a couple other names at the receiver spot. But what about Calvin Ridley, who we really haven't talked about all that much on the channel so far? A veteran, but it seems like Tennessee, 1-6, young quarterback. They're going with the younger receivers over there. And this is a guy who's been very productive in his career in the NFL, but I'm not so sure that he's the alpha boundary wide receiver and that they need, and that he's really a needle mover or anything like that. And I'm not so sure how good of a locker room guy that Calvin Ridley is at this point either. I have been preaching to all my videos that we've been talking about wide receiver, though, that if they go out there and make a deal for one, it is going to be for Rashid Shaheed, the speedster out of New Orleans. Not only do I think he is a field stretcher and a guy who can really just open up a lot for this Bills offense, I also believe that he could solve a ton for them in the special teams department as well as both a kick and punt returner. I mean, the Bills got Keon Coleman out there returning punts right now. Like, it is dire straits in the special teams department. Rashid Shaheed solves literally all of that, and it just feels like a Brandon Beane move. It just feels like that Nyheim Hines move. Feels like it just feels like a Brandon Beane trade deadline move here, bringing Rashid Shaheed, who's a free agent in 2026. Now, another reason they might not go after one of those receivers is because the Bills do have Gabe Davis, remember, on that practice squad, and he's back practicing after the torn meniscus from last season. Just practiced for the first time, so it's really good to be out there, and who knows, based on the time spent on the practice squad IR and him being ready to go now, we could see them end up elevating Gabe Davis here very, very soon. Another guy who was, a fan favorite for I guess a little bit, and a favorite of Josh Allen's. I mean, they got to try everything at their disposal right now because this current receiver corps, we can't have Tyrell Shavers running routes. Like, I understand. I like Shavers in the preseason, good run blocker, all that stuff. Let's be serious here. We have Josh Allen back there, and we cannot waste him. Go out there and get a receiver. Bring Gabe Davis up and see what you got on the boundary after that. What do you guys think? Predict it for me after we talked about a couple more names linked to your Buffalo Bills here. Will the Bills make a trade before the deadline? Very simple once again. Y for yes and for no. Comment down below what you guys think Brandon Beane's going to end up doing, as that will do it for today's show. Give me a follow over on Twitter, because if the Bills do make a trade, we'll tweet about it first. Then we'll make a video, and maybe we even go live if it's a big name coming to the 716. That's why you subscribe as well. Free Bills videos all season long will be live for Bills versus Chiefs on Sunday. So join us then. We'll see you guys. And as always, let's go Buffalo.